So we're into the third part of our mini series on sexological bodywork with wonderful Luzi, who is a somatic sexologist, facilitator, earth lover, and temple artist, and also my lovely friend. And we've spoken so far into the fundamentals of sexological bodywork. We've spoken in our second video into the difference between masturbation and self-pleasure. And Lutz, you told us about the structure of 21 days of juice that leads to the final element of fire, which I think ties us in really nicely to our third and final video around the spiritual, the magical, eros, sex magic, the infusion of creativity and sexuality, where this resides in our body energetically, and would just love to hear you expand on that.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Yeah, feels super juicy to dedicate some time to speak about that. And yeah, I've mentioned a little bit before, so the self-pleasure online journey that I'm doing, which is kind of developed from 21 days of juice to juice, which is a 7-week-long journey. I feel like the majority of that online journey, it's a deconditioning, it's a taking off all of the limitations, the kind of the limiting patterns, releasing shame that we might be holding around our sexuality, building the foundations, like being able to embody, know, feel, communicate our boundaries so we can actually feel safe, being able to regulate our nervous system, all of those things which we haven't learned because we've grown up in a society where sexuality is still has a lot of taboo and a lot of shame surrounding it. And so the majority of the course is really to kind of to unlearn, and then the magical part, the last kind of module, the fire part, is then okay. And if we've come back, when we've come back to our natural state of being, which is, we've got the ability to know, feel, trust, communicate what we want and what we don't want. We have the ability to feel safe in our bodies, to, after any kind of state of dysregulation, to come back into balance. We are able to accept and welcome in all of our emotions. We're not judging our emotions. We're not trying to push down our emotions, but we're feeling them fully. We're just like, that's just life coming through. And instead of just like touching ourselves in the same old way, with the aim to get somewhere, actually, we're moving with our bodies. We're dancing with our bodies in a very intuitive way. So these are the kind of the fundamentals. And then when we've got all of that and that's embodied, and obviously those are skills that we can repeat again and again, then it's like, oh, and now our body is open. Now our, erotic energy is just a natural part of our being. And now what's possible when that is the case? And this idea of eros is this idea of, the energy of life. It's this kind of this thing that drives everything forward. Obviously, without this erotic impulse, none of us would be here. So there's a force that's so strong that new life happens from that. And that doesn't just have to be in the form of, actual physical children, which is obviously, the kind of maybe one of the biggest like manifestations of actually 3D printing another human. But it can also be in the form of, projects coming in as these creative children that want to be expressed and brought into the world, of businesses, whatever it might be. So, and I'm sure that everyone who is a creative and who's got a creative practice can relate to that feeling of there's the expression of flow state, which I'm sure everyone knows, but there's something erotic when we're really in it, when we're really in that flow state of we're not even doing it anymore, but something else is coming through us and it's being expressed through us. And this is where I feel my kind of current inquiry lies. And I share a bit about me personally. I was convinced for the majority of my life that I'm not creative. Yet I was surrounding myself with creatives, people who are actors, performers, dancers, singers, musicians, painters, poets. And I was a bit like, why am I here? And I found it so interesting. I read The Artist's Way at some point, and it was just like, oh my God, I just couldn't believe it. And then actually remembered how when I was a child, I loved to sing, I loved to paint, I'd love to make stuff. And I remember the moment when my mum said to me, and I was a teenager, and she looked at me and she said, "You stopped singing." And obviously I recognized it, but also I didn't understand just like the gravity of that. And then years later, when I was already, kind of like well onto my spiritual path, I remember sitting in a women's circle with a good friend of mine, Holly Roxanne, who you also know.
Mm.
And we were all invited to sound, to, just like sound a little melody. And in the circle, my turn came, and I couldn't make a sound. That nothing came. And this was when I started kind of inquiring into my creative expression, alongside opening more into the exploration of my sexuality. And it's amazing. And obviously, there's lots of like beautiful information out there around if you look into the vocal cords and the kind of the back of the throat, it looks very similar to the inside of a vulva. And there's the vagus nerve also connecting that part of our bodies with our throat. So actually, women can't give birth with a shut tight jaw. It's really hard to orgasm or even like relax into pleasure when you're holding a lot of tension in the jaw. So there's this connection of the kind of the root of the body, and then where creative expression actually happens. And yeah, so when we kind of we work with our bodies and with our erotic energy in this different way, this more mindful way, we can learn to tap into creative energy. We can learn to tap into life force energy, and we can learn to open our bodies and let the energy come through. So we're not doing the doing anymore, but we're being done, and we're just becoming a channel for whatever wants to be expressed through us. That's magic for me. And it's also kind of going into what's our purpose of being here. What is it that wants to be expressed through this particular vessel? And this is the kind of the surrender part. And then there's the more, I guess, the more active part to work with that energy is to, at the beginning of a self-pleasure practice or a sex magic ritual, is to set an intention. And it's good to set that intention out loud, to really, let the words vibrate out of the mouth. And then to activate the body. So it's really a way of like opening the body and encouraging erotic energy to flow through the body. And obviously, orgasm can be part of it, doesn't have to be part of it, but to really to move whatever is in the way through the body to almost to clear this central column, you know, which, if we want to go like quite deep with this, you know, us being the channel between the cosmos and the earth, and life coming through us, which comes back to this idea of getting out of the way. What in me is maybe, was there some shame, is there some guilt, is there some fear of like, oh, what if I post this thing about social media, like, will people laugh at me? What if I you know, release a song, will anyone buy it or like it? Like, all of the things that might be like, yeah, like, obviously they are very personal human insecurities, and whatever might be there, can I release that? Can I soften into that? And can I open to this, yeah, this energy which wants to bring something through me? And it's something that I've been journeying with a lot, especially over the last couple of years, of, you know, starting a fucking Instagram, for example. That was such an edge for me, to really share what I care about the most in the world via, you know, publicly, and going through all of the fears of, what if I will get, you know, cancelled, banned, shut down, ridiculed? And then it's also like, oh, I'm not really that important, but actually, what's the worst? If no one cares. That would be the worst, if I share what I'm so passionate about and no one gives a fuck. And so just feeling into all of these limitations, and I can feel them in different parts of the body. You know, for example, doing the anal work that we already spoke about, the root chakra. There's the very kind of, you know, foundational survival fears happening there. You know, what vulnerability, what armor might there be around my heart, you know? And so there's ways of kind of feeling into what's blocking me from life coming through me and expressing through me. And obviously we can support ourselves with our intention. We can supercharge this intention with our erotic energy, because this is the energy of creation. This is the energy that brings stuff from the kind of ethereal, you know, intention, the like cosmic soup, into actual flesh and bones and being, projects, humans, artworks, whatever it might be.
The creativity of that sexual energy. I mean, I feel like a lot of people must be able to relate to that feeling of like a poster, I don't know, an amazing sexual experience where you're just full of eros. Like, now I know it is that, and it's like that life force of like, it's positivity, it's possibility, it's like fertility in ideas. It's like curiosity, it's expansive. And I also feel that in other ways, when I feel not just after a sexual experience, but perhaps like the adrenaline and the excitement that comes from having completed a project, or like being in the middle of one. And that is something I can relate to before I understood any of this, or had learned any tools, or had even embarked on this journey, if you like. I kind of had this intuition that my creativity and sexuality were in the same place energetically in me, and I didn't understand that, but I knew that one needed to give, and I needed to work on one to open the other. And I mean, I must have read something somewhere, or it was just intuitive, because it wasn't stuff I was talking about with friends at the time. It was a time where I think it was pre 2020, but was like, I definitely want some sort of therapy. What's going to help? I wanted this like real deep, like I was ready to just like dive in deep, and like not sure when I'd come out or how that would look, but I was just ready to dive in and find some answers and some like expansion, really. And yeah, like from speaking to different people, found myself a sex and relationship coach, and it was there that I was like, right, I think that what I'm going to do is some sexological body work with this amazing woman, with the hope that it would unlock the creativity. And it really did. Like, I went into that 6-month container thinking, actually quite naively, like, great, I'm going to learn how to have transcendental orgasms, and I am going to always be orgasmic. And what I didn't realize until like a long time in was, okay, actually, this is a really safe space to shed lots of things that are stopping me from being as orgasmic as I want to be, or just feeling pleasure in the like how I eat my food or how I have interactions and the kind of like day-to-day eroticism in just daily life. Like when I started to learn the ways in which you could do that, it made everything else more expansive. And actually, on the other side of that, there was the confidence to open this portal of bleed on it. And then was like kind of just like, oh, actually, what led me here was my menstrual cycle, because leaning into that access point into my like deeper emotional state was what enabled me to find that intuition, I think, to have some sex coaching, and then was like on the other side of it, okay, this is a creative project that I'm really going to go into here. So that's where I came to learn a bit more about the sacral space. Is it the sacrum or sacral? Is it the same thing?
Slightly different things, but what do you mean?
What I mean is kind of learning actually just about the chakra system and where I could place this duality of creativity and sensuality, sexuality, where I could place them in a part of my body, and then I could start to like work with my body with touch and meditation. So then I could start to try and channel it, as you say, like through this portal. And ultimately the aim of is like getting to the cosmos, which is where like the transcendental state is. So that was always my like aim, to get to that place, and not just for orgasm but for creative stimulation, for ideas. Because before I started on this path seeking sexual healing, really, it was like I had no ideas. I was blocked when it came to relationships. I was blocked when it came to my creativity. And I studied fine art at university. I was at university for 4 years and was always trying to like with masturbation, like just going hard, like trying so hard to get an idea out. And really struggled with that, actually. Really struggled with having a lack of inspiration and kind of a lack of expansion, to be honest with you. So that was my pathway into this work, really. And I think I met you just after, not that long after I'd completed that container, actually. And yeah, I was just amazed to have met somebody on the journey. And you were quite a few steps ahead, having attended different retreats, some being like sexual healing related, some actually just being deep into your like exploring your emotions. And yeah, that was a huge relief for me, actually, to find someone else like on the journey that had like a lot of experiences to attribute. And then you started studying and it really became your entire world. So it was like the universe has done me a solid here. And it was nice to exchange that, I think, with us, of kind of just slightly getting it, and how like having someone to talk to about it is so grounding, because it can be up here and it can be like out there, and then being able to have a conversation and be like, oh, you do kind of get it, this is great.
But this is it, isn't it? It's like, oh, this is the sacred key, and you also know about it. There's without necessarily having like already explored that extensively at that time. You had an embodied experience of what it means, and there was a sense of, okay, I get it now without necessarily needing to understand it. And I feel like this is really something that I want, for people to take away, that really like sexual healing is not the end goal. Sexual healing is really the beginning. This is when all of the fun starts, because if you really want to zoom out, I mean, what's the purpose of being here? What's the purpose of life? We're here to create. We are the creatures that are not just kind of like spiritual entities wafting around, but we're here. We're here in the 3D, like we've got bodies, we can do stuff, we can make stuff. And for me, this is really the, while I'm here, that's what I want to do. I want to create stuff, and I want to create that which I feel like is wanting to come through me. And so, obviously going through the necessary steps of the healing journey in our sexuality is super important. But then once that's integrated, what is actually possible? And what can we create where we utilize our erotic energy to bring that into the world? And also, obviously, vice versa, how ecstatic and expansive and juicy life gets, when we get to live in that way, when we allow ourselves to bring the creative projects forth that our heart and our soul yearn for, when we get out of our own way and just learn to be with the insecurities and do it anyway, and know that what wants to come through will touch the right people. And so this is really for me where I'm now kind of finding myself, where there's just endless possibilities. And this is why I really love working with creatives who perhaps haven't integrated their sexuality, because I'm like, whoa, already, like, look at you and the gifts that you're bringing into this world. And what you can unlock when you unlock your sexuality to supercharge what you're already doing. Like, wow, that's super powerful.
And I mean, going back to, I can't imagine a time where you ever felt like you weren't creative, Lutz. Like, you've created containers, you created courses, but it's this. And actually, I will say, I feel like you're one of the most playful people I know. And I think that must come into this ability, like when you're flowing in your creative state, you integrate that not just in a creative project or with self-pleasure perhaps, but like in life, like when we live together, you were like, obviously I'm going to do an Easter egg hunt for us. And it's like, that's so gorgeous. And like, the only thing you can get from that is some joy, and it's playful, and the way that you live, it feels very playful to me. And sometimes we can just do something to have a bit of fun, and being able to incorporate, you actually did teach me bringing in that playful, light-hearted element to this healing journey and to self-pleasure is so important and allows, creative energy to flow.
Thank you, Robs. I've forgotten about the Easter egg hunt. Yeah, good times.
Good times. And the other thing I wanted to say from what you just said was, I think actually the unknown, like, so being a creative person, having had some experiences actually where I have had, God, I don't know if one time was a bit of like a cervical awakening, because it was during sex, and I definitely felt something inside me anatomically that I hadn't. Maybe it was just like I'd been stimulated in a way that was new and had an out of body experience. And I think like knowing that, almost like that my brain could go there without me telling it to, it allows me to know that like the unknown, there's some stuff to explore. And even though that's quite exciting and quite stimulating, like I wasn't on acid or shrooms, but I had a trip, like I'm excited by the fact that my body allowed me to go there, and that it was, probably a few seconds of exploring like another dimension. And even though that is so exciting and so juicy, I think I hold myself back with, well, what is on the other side? Like, how good could it be? Like, how, and is that for me? Like, it really taps into your self-worth, when even if you think you're someone who is outgoing, enjoying life, like this work shows me my sensibilities and my vulnerabilities, because truthfully, at the bottom of that, do I think I deserve what's on the other side? Which is weird to even say, but maybe maybe that's it, because there is a fear of the unknown, of like, oh, maybe that's why I hold myself back with like exploring deeply into the self-pleasure stuff. 'Cause it's like, how good could it get, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's so beautiful that you bring that in, Robs, because it's the mystery, isn't it? We're entering into realms that don't make sense. We can't explain. We're entering deep trance states, and yeah, there's an element of deep trust and surrender that we need to bring in, which is why doing the foundational work of knowing how to hold oneself, how to regulate one's nervous system, how to be with challenging emotions when they come up, all of that is the pre-work. So then actually we can go into dissolution, really, of totally letting go and letting ourselves be taken by life, because it's not someone else doing it to us, but it's really an experience of that total surrender into ecstasy, which it's a beautiful, transformational, sometimes very intense and also confronting experience. And I think we've got to be equipped. Obviously these experiences can be spontaneous, but in order to actually to integrate them and also to be able to to access them again and again in these states, it's important to have the foundation set.
Absolutely. And since that did happen, I had this amazing trip during sex. I was like, well, I want to get that again. I want this to be how I have sex now. But this is why I will be on your new expansion of 21 Days of Juice, which is called Juice, and it starts in October. And I'm really looking forward to it, because this conversation is timely. It's something that, like, this work is what I'm really trying to ease into again, and kind of give myself, it is sexual healing, and being part of that journey with you, which was 7 weeks. Is it 7 weeks? I'm really looking forward to it, basically, for exactly everything we've just said, to build those foundations of safety, like of those personal resources to enable that further expansion. Not, again, it all connects to life, doesn't it? But not just orgasmically solo, but with partners, but also with my own creativity. Like what could bleed on it become, if I really allow myself to, like, for it to erupt inside me, and for all of this like stuff to happen, what could that do? Like, how could that enable me to connect more with the people in my life? Like, maybe I'll move somewhere, like, the possibilities are endless, really. And that's, I think, the core of what I came to understand this work to be, is so much more than an orgasm. It's how we become erotic in life, and how we choose to cook our food, eat our food, how we choose to relate with friends, or how we choose to dress. It's like, I can relate it to when I'm in like a really healthy, like, ovulation, when I'm feeling really juiced up and I just want to talk and I want to explore and I'm feeling creative, and I often find that I just want to be a bit more daring with how I want to dress, or simple things like I might feel a bit more up for cycling than driving, and it's because I've got more energy, but I'm also just a bit more curious about what my route looks like, and really in really just taking that into everyday life, basically. And I think this is how it so beautifully combines with how we can look at our cycle as well, which perhaps we have another chat about that another day, of how we look at the 4 phases of the cycle in relation to all this juicy work. But it's definitely another focus chat, I think.
Yeah, and I love that you just brought the different phases of the cycle, because obviously, the orgasmic waves, there's like there's a building, there's a peak, there's a coming down the wave, and there's a kind of, settling. So there's a cycle happening. And I feel like with this exploration, you know, same with the cycles of the bleed. It's not around like getting attached to a single phase, like, oh, I've got more energy in ovulation now, I always want to be there, like, oh, I just always want to be in the peak of orgasm. But actually it's they complement each other. They're, you know, the life death cycle, the seasons. It's the same with the orgasm. So it's not about chasing the orgasm anymore, which actually what we're chasing is the peak, but it's about becoming orgasmic. And becoming orgasmic is I'm riding the waves, and I'm riding life, and I'm accepting of every single stage of the journey.
Absolutely. And that's where, you know, because it's often spoke about, you know, ovulation being the peak sexy time. You know, our bodies are literally telling us, okay, fertile window, can we make some babies now? When, you know, when you're integrating this, you can perhaps feel that eros in each phase, actually. And for me, it's, I mean, I think I'm way more connected to my sexuality in my luteal phase, actually. And that's when I haven't got the hype of estrogen coming at me hard. You know, it's like I've got the like just more clarity, and that veil is put to the side. And I feel like in my luteal phase, I'm actually quite, when I'm not feeling quite angsty and PMSy, can feel really grounded, and I've actually always been working on how to make the luteal phase not involve PMS, because, you know, PMS is so normalized and it's very common, but I think the fact that it's normalized is probably a bit of an issue, because, you know, we're not meant to live in this discomfort. Like, these are messages that come through to let us know that something's amiss, really. And I think that deeply intuitive element of the luteal phase I really respect now. And I used to fight it because I felt like it was just this anxious voice that was you know, intruding my life. When actually I was like, now I kind of like, okay, thank you, thanks for that, noted, might come back to it, might not, but at least it's there. And it's intuition, it's powerful, and I would hate to live without that now. So transforming that has been pretty life-changing. But yeah, perhaps we can have another chat on this, Litz, and how we can really feel into it in each phase at another time, because there's a lot in it.
I'd love to.
But I think that we've had a really juicy chat in how we can combine, well, identify, awaken, push forward the elements of creativity and sexuality within us. And hopefully that's clear for people listening. And if there are any inquiries or questions into it, I'm sure, Litsa, you'll be super happy to hear from anyone that's more curious, particularly on the sexological bodywork angle of our chat, really. And I mean, shameless plug for you, it's all going to be there in juice. And as someone that, I'm just really excited for it, like, just to commit to that time, to be honest, and that's the main part, I think, for me, like, knowing that I'm in a container that requires some discipline, it requires presence, and to have that time to focus on myself. Basically, it's like an investment I'm doing instead of therapy. It's one of the things, it's an access point to my psyche, my eros, my journey that feels right for now. So looking forward to it. But we can share some info on how people can reach that, like via your Instagram and your website anyway.
Thanks, Robs.
Is there anything else?
Questions, reach out, and juice is going to be where all of the juice will be happening.
Yes, it's all in the title. Well, unless there was anything else you want to share, Liz, I think we can round off our little mini series there.
That sounds great, Rob. So it was a pleasure being here with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks for being here, babe, and sharing all this wisdom. And it is a gift, you know, it's a gift of where we can go with our own bodies and life and creativity and all of it. It's so much bigger, isn't it, than just in our bodies.
Thanks, Robs. Love you.